country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
My brother need not be idealized or enlarged in death beyond what he was in life. To be remembered simply as a good and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, saw suffering and tried to heal it, saw war and tried to stop it.
That he did. Say what you want about the man, but he saw war and tried to stop it. That we can be sure of. That's what we're trying to do, stick to the facts. You know, what he did in his off time, what he took to quiet his pain, his understanding between his wife, his cabinet, his security detail, all of those things. I know he tried to create peace. He was probably too young. He was probably a little too inexperienced. He probably trusted too much. He trusted these groups, these dug in, this blob of societies and cliques and good old boy clubs and secret societies, all of these things mixed in together. Money, elite, power, you know, whatever, control, psychopathic, however you want to color it. These groups stay the same, and the presidents change usually every 4 years, sometimes every 8. And I believe Kennedy was wise to some of it, but, you know, he wasn't a stupid man. You know, it wasn't just where he went to school, what books he read. It was his military service. It was growing up in a highly competitive family where you couldn't trust your sibling. In fact, you better be looking out. This is what he grew up in. His father's constant pressure. Everybody has to do more, try harder, achieve more. And in the order he was in, I almost looked and said, man, I bet you I'm muted this whole time. I'm good. Am I good? Am I 5'5"? Welcome in, everybody. I'm sorry. I start looking at those videos and I start thinking, you know, when I'm getting ready for the show, digging into all this stuff, and you think, okay, well, you know, a lot of people hated Kennedy. A lot of people were mad at Kennedy. Okay. A lot of people loved him too. And the proof of this is, you know, whether you loved him or hated him or you were Democrat, Republican, I'll tell you what, that's kind of, you know, flipped around a little bit and, you know, in 60 years. But no matter what, this was wrong. This is not how it's done. We are not a banana republic. I hate to say it, but, you know, that day looks like it, you know. You'd be absolutely, I don't want to say lying to yourself or not telling yourself the whole truth, but if you can look at the things that you've learned digging into these types of subjects, that you can believe what you're being told, what you're being fed, you know, it's the same thing as, I think that's the audacity of the whole thing, is just so annoying. You know, 12:30, broad daylight, bam. Not the first time. Just days before, they tried to kill him in Miami. They tried to kill him in Chicago. That got shut down. Guns were found in the room. The maid or the landlady or whatever called in to bed and breakfast. Hey, there's a bunch of Cuban guys up here. They've got guns. They look serious. They're of the serious type. Well, they fled, left their stuff behind. So it's the audacity of it. And it's, I think if you sat with me and you watched JFK on our Tuesday night movies on Rumbles, if you're not there, I hope you join us. Thanks so much, Scott, for becoming a member again. I don't know, Rumble does that. So if you're getting unfollowing, you know, I think Rumble, it's follow and subscribe, or is it subscribe and follow? Either way, One is free, one's a monthly charge to become a member. They're all different. Every single one's different. Facebook's different. You go crazy, right? So, but thank you so much for doing that. And I don't know why, but they'll change out my mods. They'll do other things. I'm not pushing any buttons. Okay. But thank you so much for keeping up with that and doing that. So, and I about got my wacky wheel. I'm hoping I'll get to use it tomorrow night with Steve. We're still trying to get his internet going. You know, it's tough as podcasters, as creators, man. I'm telling you, there's people with all this production and this, and they've got zippity doodahs going in and out, and their logos like on flames, and they say, throw it up there, Bob or Alice or whoever in the background, and somebody throws up all the correct videos and right at the right spot and all this other stuff. Nah, any of that. It's just me mashing buttons until one works. It is what it is, and I appreciate it so much that you guys are here and you're supporting the show just by being here, that you're still interested in JFK. And tonight I've got a crazy story because if it hasn't been, we're walking down this dark hallway and I'm telling you, I said, like a lot of them, I said, look, we're going to go in some doors, we're going to leave open, some we're just going to crack and take a peek in and go, whoa, man, that's like huge. Yeah, New Orleans, I get it, JFK. So we watched the movie JFK. If you watched it with me, you got that part of it. You got the, what was Oswald doing, handing out pamphlets for fair trade for Cuba, and was he involved with Ferry, and was he involved with Shaw and Clyde Bannister, and what was the CIA doing up there? What was the FBI doing up there? What was anybody doing up there? The Bay of Pigs, was his mob involved? All of this, Project Mongoose, yes, the mob was involved. And that was, it was interesting because it was one of the first times I think they really, at least on paper and document wise, after all these years, 60 years of peeling back documents about this. But Operation Mongoose was one of the first times I think the CIA actually worked hand in hand with the mob to kill Castro. So that's where you're getting in all of this David Ferry stuff. David Ferry with the crazy eyebrows and the wig. He's involved with training out there for the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban rebels and all this other stuff. And this is where a lot of them are connected in. And so was Oswald. And then you go this way. You go, well, Oswald, right out of high school, lied about his age, goes into the Marines, winds up going to Japan, working on how the hell did he get such a high clearance on the MOS he was working on out there? Radar and radio and the planes and different things like this, because this is where he learned about having enough to go to Russia and go, hey, I'll give you all the secrets about this. This is what I know about, And Russia was just, whoa, let's keep an eye on this guy for a while. So he winds up living in Minsk for a while. So all these doors you look at and go, okay, you want to go to Russia and see what he was doing there. I heard he just to throw them off or something. He wound up slitting his wrists in a bathtub to throw this one. This is the most complicated 24-year-old you're ever going to hear about, is Oswald. That's why I'm saying we're walking down this hallway and we're opening these doors and we're looking in and go, whoa, I'm not ready for that one yet. He went to Japan. He went to Russia. He was in Mexico. And that's a big controversy. How long was he in Mexico? Was he really in Mexico? Is that a big, red flag? What was that? There's people that have dedicated 20 years of their lives writing books about Oswald in Mexico. Jefferson Morley is one of them. The book just came out not too long ago, and then you get somebody like him at the table with somebody who doesn't believe that Oswald went to Mexico. And it's like having the Bigfoot guys sitting down with the Dogman guys and the UFO people pop in, and you have a party then. Everybody's arguing, yours can't exist without mine and blah, blah, blah. And, my experience is bigger than your experience kind of thing. So it gets crazy. That being said about JFK, what I was saying in the beginning is no matter how you felt about the man, what was done was wrong. And I think the audacity of it and the psychopathic engine behind it and the power and the flippant control and the control freak moving of the chess pieces and, take him out. I don't like what he's doing. He wants to pull us out of Vietnam. He's talking to Khrushchev behind our backs. He's going to get, if we're not careful, he's going to have peace. He's making deals behind our back. That's treason. These were talks that were going on. The son of a bitch left us hanging in the Bay of Pigs and everything else. Oh, did he get set up? He felt he got set up by Allen Dulles, the Dulles brothers, CIA. That's why he got fired. And oddly enough, he winds up being in charge of the Warren Report, but he didn't want his name on it. That's why they stuck Warren in there. LBJ just berated Warren. Says, "You're my guy for this. You're going to do this. By God, you're going to serve." I've listened to the telephone calls. So there's so much going on all at once. And here's Oswald. What do I believe? Now, again, do your own research. Who am I? Just somebody who's been looking into this like a lot of other, some poor slobs out there just reading books and looking at documents and trying to figure out how did they pull this off. It's no longer a question about was there conspiracies. Like, how many freaking ones were there? How many people were in on this? How many people, again, in on it and not aware of the other person or the other group or the other, people pulling strings? I had, Chris, you asked me about David Atlee Phillips. And I said, puppet master. We believe, a lot of people, I say we, like I'm in a group or something. I'm not. I'm in a group of people, of researchers. I loosely put myself in that group, because, researchers, but it sounds so grandiose, sitting next to some of these other people that have just been literally their life, When you sit with them and you start, going over this, the only thing that gets to me is, again, the arguing, which is why I say threads. It was good enough for Penn Jones Jr. It was good enough for me. I had no idea. And here we are on the same thought length. I couldn't be more honored to think that yes, everything has to stay. And I'm watching creators now in this past week. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening to my babble. I'm listening to a lot of people this week, and I'm listening to people that are in, I have a friend who I've done multiple shows on this subject with. I don't want to call him out right now because Lord knows he's been through enough. He's extremely intelligent. His bona fides are bar none. I mean, he's a wonderful attorney. He's worked with very high-end attorneys. I've spoken to him on the phone multiple times for hours, each. Plus radio interviews, plus my show interviews. And I've gotten to know this person. And, they've written 7-8 books on this subject, different aspects of this subject. And to hear a big creator just put him down and call him, literally call names and, oh, that guy's an idiot. That guy's a shyster. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and just blow him off like that. Have you ever sat down and talked to the man in the same room? Because here's the thing, you might disagree with one thing they're saying, or, they took that route and went this way with it, and you took that route, went this way with it. It doesn't mean that, there's facts on both sides that are going to be meaningful to something. Don't be so quick to throw out everybody's body of work. There are people that have been doing this for 50 years, more. Jim Mars used to say, I started 15 minutes after the shooting, because he was in his room with admittedly, I believe he said he had a hangover. He's 22. He's at university out there in Dallas. And he's kind of a cub reporter too, because that was part of his the classes he was taking, whatever. And they woke him up, wrestled him up, say, "Hey man, did you hear what happened?" And they turned on the little TV in the dorm room, little black and white TV, and there it was. The president's been shot 15 minutes after the fact. And that's when he started. I know for a fact he was researching it right up to the day he died, Jim Mars. So that's just one. And to look at somebody like Jim Mars and throw out everything that he, he said this, or throw it all out. Brr, that guy's an idiot. Doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just a grandstander. He's this, that, and the other thing. That bothers me a little bit, because here's the thing. Are you throwing out all the facts? Because I know for sure some large creators have put this one person down. author, wonderful individual. And I'm looking at him going, hold up a minute. Just because this person had a past or whatever and died. So you've got like so many people that died in the JFK, around the JFK assassination. And we have actually, in this series, concentrated a little bit on that. Who died to speak the truth? What were they trying to say? What did they not want us to hear? And I find that's a good trail to take, because here's the thing. One of the first ones was a prostitute, and she had a drug problem. And, she chose to do her life wherever she was doing it. But because she was doing that, she overheard a conversation where these guys, serious guys, these guys mean business. They're going to kill the president. Somebody needs to help. She got thrown out of a moving car. They beat the hell out of her. They drugged her up. She goes to the hospital. Nobody listens to a word she's saying because of who she is. And nobody does anything. Nobody tells anybody because of who she is. And to just throw that out, oh, she didn't know what she was talking about. She did, because she was saying these things 2 days and a day before, and everybody was starting to collect in Dallas. This is where she's overheard it. So many people tried to warn. Somebody else who tried to warn that this was coming, that they were going to try to assassinate the president, was Lee Harvey Oswald himself. Are you aware of that? He goes and he sends, forget what office he went to. It was a telegram of some sort, or a letter that, maybe it was just the regular post office. I don't know. I don't want to guess. So he writes this letter. It gets to where he's sending it to. He's warning the FBI that there's going to be a hit on the president. This is what more than one witness has said. So that sounds like a crazy something somebody just pulled up out of nowhere. But here's the thing. It's documented that the person who got it admitted it, tore it up, threw it out, took it back out of the garbage can, and then decided to tear up some more and flush it down the toilet because they were told to destroy the letter. And they said the letter was just some gibberish. Really? Why would you go through so much to destroy a letter that was all just gibberish? Again, common sense, intuition. I mean, so obvious. It's very much like killing somebody who had something to say that didn't go with the Warren report, right? What were they trying to say? And then the boldface of taking somebody's testimony and completely changing it, and then putting that in the Warren report and swearing on it. This is what the men behind the Warren report would do. It was so corrupt, so dastardly. And Kennedy was up against all of this the whole time. He was in there. Sound familiar, doesn't it? Somebody else recently went through the same thing where they had everybody was against him. It was like a real Caesar thing. So many knives in his backside, even funny. Same thing. So Kennedy's trying to do his best behind the scenes. I agree. He let his brother get a little crazy as AG, going after that wasn't smart. Going after organized crime and all that. After Hoover spent so many decades saying that organized crime didn't even exist, all of a sudden this bulldog Kennedy is released. Again, nothing against Robert Sr., but that's what he did, and it stirred up a lot of trouble. And it was after the mob got together. You can't win in Chicago without the union and the mob. Let's be serious. So we went over a lot of that in the first couple of episodes, and why was Kennedy shot? With so many people were mad at him. Big Oil was mad at him. All the oil industry people, the big dudes. There you are in Texas, right? You've got all of the people involved that I believe is involved. Again, do your own research. LBJ Connolly, all of their friends. You've got Cavell, who owned the was the mayor, excuse me. Also Connections Brothers in the CIA, and one of the ones I think that got pushed out by Kennedy. All of these connections, it's just too many for coincidence, right? Well, tonight we're going to open a door that's so dark inside that I'm not even sure what my theory is at this point. But when you realize that these are people who are so evil, and so powerful, and so psychologically cold to make these choices, just like a general on a battlefield. Well, we're going to lose 100, but or we're going to lose 1,000, but we're going to save 1,000,000, kind of things. But for their own profit, for their own benefit, for their own bank accounts. Right? You got LBJ, who was involved heavily in what was it called? Brown and Root, became Bell and Howell. Leaned over and told the Joint Chief of Staff, "Boys, I'll give you your war. Here we go, Vietnam." Funny how it escalated 3 days after Kennedy was dead. Not even. It was signed as soon as LBJ hit the Oval Office. And then you've got, like I said, the people in the Warren Report. You've got Gerald Ford changing the damn diagram. There are pictures. You can go in and go through the JFK drop files, and you can see his penciling and everything else, and how he changed the bullet wound from the back of the shoulder to the back of the neck for clarity. He said, "quote unquote." Clarity of what? For the American people. So your devious deeds, your treason can be more clear to the American people. They made it clear for us, folks, and we still bought it. Now, there were groups that tried to get petitions signed to have it re-looked into, and they would, throughout the years, they would do the Blue Ribbon Commission on the assassination of Kennedy, and we find that the Warren Report is just accurate, and blah, 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 blah. By then, they had killed so many people to keep this quiet. And now we're left 60 years later looking back going, where do these pieces fit? Where are these threads taking us? Like I said, another door you can look through, and you could go down and follow Oswald's life. You can follow how many? There's as many as 6 different Oswald imposters. Not all of them look like him. Some of them just had to show up different places and make a big ruckus and then say his name was Lee Oswald or Harvey Idell or whatever it was. It's crazy. The cover-up is so amazingly sloppy, but they made up for it with their willingness to kill people, to shut them up until they got enough where they're just all sorted. Okay, who's left? Okay, what do you believe? And we're going to look at a couple of those tonight too. Oh, you're right. That was Oswald, clear as day. They took creators will say, or researchers or whatever, they'll tell you that anytime you hear that they picked him out of a lineup, understand how these lineups were run. Now, this is fact. They would bring Harvey Oswald in, and he was his own worst enemy at this point, because I think this poor kid finally realized that the patsy that he was, that he had watched it happen to other people. He knew that they moved him around and gave him different jobs in case he was needed here for this, and he'd have to go over here and move this here, or go meet somebody in a theater and match up a torn dollar bill and say the magic secret spy word and, hand off a package or a payment or whatever it was that he was doing, because they all did stuff like this. And if they needed him and they were using you, for a purpose just as this, they knew who to call, because there was one in Miami and there was one in Chicago too, just like Lee Harvey Oswald, that they had been working with for years, moving them around, making up their backgrounds and everything else, and putting them here and taking them there. And I think he finally got it. By the time the reporters are yelling out stuff like, have they told you, did you shoot the president? No, and I haven't been charged with that. And, I want my lawyer, and I want, call the ACU, and he's yelling out names. And Ruth Payne was supposed to call him a lawyer and didn't. And the phone call never got answered. And he started to realize, I'm trapped like a rat. This poor kid. I don't think he ever shot anything. Not the president, not one shot. If that's just my thoughts, my opinion. I don't think he shot General Walker. They're trying to say he shot General Walker weeks later or earlier. I don't think he did that one either. I don't think he was a shooter. I don't think he doesn't come off to me as the slick, overtrained, robotic, methodical sniper. He's not militaristic enough. He's not rhythmic enough. He didn't have that dead not that snipers dead, but there's a look in your eye. Not the 1,000-yard stare so much, but there's a look. There's a look. And he didn't have it. And he also, in my opinion, and I don't think he had the MK Ultra look either. The Sirhan, the just shoot until somebody stops me. Bang, 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 bang. And then just, who am I? Where am I? You know, what have I done? What's all the fuss about? He didn't have that. You know who else had that? The one who shot Lennon had that, and the one that shot Reagan had that. And Squeaky Frome had that when she shot Ford. She was brand new anyway. They burnt that girl. They lobotomized them with drugs and everything else on purpose. Again, a whole nother episode. Timothy Leary and LSD and his CIA and do the experiments with, oh God, Jolly West and Helter Skelter, the whole shebang. Folks, when you realize how much trouble they go through just to screw with your mind and control things, you'll have an easier day. Yes, they are that evil. Yes, they are that calculating. Yes, they can be that sloppy and still make it stick. I give you 2 airplanes, 3 buildings down, and everybody bought it. We went to war for it. We gave up our rights for it with the Patriot Act. But by God, when W climbed that mountain and they raised that flag and he said the guilty are going to pay for this and raised his fist and pumped it in the air and all the firemen yelled and screamed because they believed him, everybody joined up. How's this any different? Instead of wallets being thrown down on the scene, they just threw passports. They played your heartstrings. They got away with it. Well, we're still talking about this one 60 years later. Now, again, these are all my opinions. Your mileage may vary. But name them off. How many before we say enough? And I think this is our way of saying enough. No, we're not tired of talking about JFK. No, we're not tired of talking about how it was covered up and who lied. And how many people did you kill to keep that secret? It's not a secret. We see you. And we see when you tried to pull it recently because you're still playing the same playbook and it's sticking out like a sore thumb. And we see it all. We're just not going to stand for it this time. We're going to keep pointing our fingers and going, I see you, till you stop. We put you behind bars where you need to be. So if you're going to be acting like an animal and just killing people you don't like and trying to control the world, well, I think people had enough of that shit. So here we go. What deep, dark door are we going to kick in? We're going to kick in the tale of the 2 coffins. Now, you may not realize it, but something funky was going down Parkland. We left off in a couple places. We went off in a couple of different directions. We looked into a couple of hitmen. We looked at some pictures. We looked at some puffs of smoke, and we looked at some witnesses that had a lot to say about what they saw about the grassy knoll and how many people are behind that damn fence anyway, and how come they're all back there and nobody saw each other. What's going on there? We talked about some of the people that are coming out now and saying, hey, I was behind that fence. I'm the one who did it. And coming up with great stories that you just hang on, and they give you chills because there's little details in there that go, oh, he must have been there because they said it was raining. He said he had mud on his boots. He said he scraped the mud off his boots on the bumper of the car that was parked there. And that's what this one guy witness said back in 1963 when Mark Lane interviewed him. And now this guy has been locked up in prison for 20 years, got plenty of time to make up a story. I could make up 2 or 3 stories in 20 years and have you believe them, I assure you, with detail. But does that mean he's lying? I'm not naming anybody here. There's a couple of people that fit that bill. But if I was laying there looking at the bottom of the bunk in front, above me for 10, 20 years, I'd come up with a damn good story. I'd do voices and everything else. Character's so believable, you just feel sorry for him. Guarantee it. So did he? Or is he telling the truth? Is it a deathbed confession? Now I've seen also big creators on big shows that are supposed to be very, very knowledgeable about JFK just blow those people off. They're all telling a lie. There's all lying. They're selling a book. This poor dude needed to go on tour, and make some money. So he said he found the bullet, and his son's coming out and helping him tell the story and buy the book. And gosh, there's a ton of them. How do you weed through them? How do I weed through them? Here's a simple test. For me, again, it might not be work for you. These son of a bitches killed so many people to keep them quiet. Anybody that had anything to do, especially on the inside, gone. And when they let them go for about 10 years and they stayed quiet because they knew what they were doing and they understood the life, and that's the way that, whatever society they were involved in handled really top secret things, were good soldiers. Well, when it started getting interest again and they started getting subpoenaed to come and talk and come testify, another flood. Bunch of people winding up floating in barrels with the fishes. You got people getting their throat cut. The one guy got shot in the mouth 5 times. I don't even know how that's possible. I guess he won't be talking to nobody. But if that isn't, a warning to everybody else that wants to say something, I don't know what is. 5 times around the mouth. That's a little excessive. But all kinds of things were happening, like the cards in the playing cards in the collar, the ace of spades, Cuban neckties, all that kind of stuff. So my point is this: when you realize how far they'll go to create the narrative that they want to create, I think you look at everything differently. You look at Oklahoma bombing differently. You're going to look at 9/11 differently, Titanic, Pearl Harbor, all of it. And you go, oh, okay. Who had the power? Who had the ability? Who had the motive? Who benefited? Right? Okay, so with this one, what slide is this? Okay, so let me find the right slide here. The reason I weigh it and think, okay, granted, deathbed confession, you got a great story. You could have been there behind the fence. You could have shot Kennedy. Here's the thing. Here's what I have a problem with. One, I don't want to buy your book because I don't want you to benefit from killing my president. I mean, granted, I was 9 months old, but I think given the chance, I might have voted for it. I might have voted for him. He's still my president. He was still the one that when my mom put me to bed and she was thinking about dangers of, I don't know, aliens or whatever they worried about then, or the Cuban Missile Crisis or whatever, they were very grateful that they weren't blown the hell up. Right? So there was that. I mean, they talked more about, I think probably about what Jackie was wearing than what Kennedy was doing to save our asses. And I'm pretty sure that Life magazine didn't do a big write-up on Project Northwoods and what the Joint Chiefs of Staff were up to and what they wanted to do to the American public just so they could get their cheesy little war in Cuba. And Operation Mongoose, where they're talking about poisoning Cubans, Castro's cigars and all that stuff. Look, you might not like how somebody's running the country, but me personally, I don't think it's any of our damn business. You do you. We're going to do us over here. Don't bring your peanut butter over into our chocolate. We don't have a problem. No, I don't think people should go off and create genocide on other people. Hell no. But other than that, what side they butter their bread on it. I don't think that's our business. I don't think we should be going over taking governments out and putting people we want in there. What is that? This is a slippery slope right there. Isn't that what they did in Dallas? Well, my friends, that's the kind of documents you got in the last JFK filed up. There was an awful lot of confirming documents that said, yes, that's exactly what was going on. And again, I reiterate, still is. Eyes open. Okay. So this one is The Tale of Two Coffins. And again, what witnesses are around to tell us what happened there? How long did they wait to speak? Why did they wait to speak? And again, for the ones that are coming out and giving the deathbed confessions and the books that they're writing that they were behind the fence and they shot Kennedy. No, I don't want to buy your book. I don't, I'm not saying you're not telling the truth, but here's the thing. You're still alive. And I think if you were in that position, you wouldn't be. I don't care how long you waited. That's just my thoughts. I think a lot of people turned down the gig because they knew that. Oh, you do that, man, you're gone. Now, anybody that watched the movie Executive Action with me on Tuesday night on Rumble, we watched just that. That was Mark Lane's idea of taking his evidence and putting it together and giving you a good scenario of how it probably went down. One section of it went down, how one part of it went down. But I think all the independent parts were treated just very much like that, very clandestine, very, professionals. They knew what they were doing, didn't even talk on the planes. There's all these great little stories of people jumping military flights, and there's two guys get on and overhauls, and they're just sit there. They're up to something, then they fly down, they get off, and they get into a car, go. They're doing something, Anybody that's ever been in the military, there's a lot of that going on. But when one of those connects with another one, and both those people got offed because of what they knew, it has a little bit more. The scales in this thing are so hard to balance that when something like that happens, it gives a little bit more weight. And when somebody is still alive and you're telling me that they knew who you were and you did an important shot like that and you're still alive, it kind of goes, I don't know. Even though a lot of the things you're saying is matching up with stuff from before. Well, Mark Lane's movie came out and book 67. So you have from 67 to now to come up with a story. Could you do it? Especially if you had a lot of time on your hands. So that's kind of how I weigh it too. Just like I give a little bit more weight to somebody who was trying to tell the truth and got offed here. So what am I talking about with the two coffins? Well, it's all about what went down the minute Kennedy was shot. Where did they go? Gear finally sped up. Say what you will about him, the driver. We talked about, not to forget. All right, I'm just going to pull this up so I can see it. This is all the people that they killed. Let me try to get to this one. Okay. Yep. Roger Craig's another one. He didn't last long. He was on the Dallas Police Department. Remember he told you the story last week? Gone. Oh, there he is, Alan Dulles. All right, let me see if I get to this one. We did all of this last week. Okay, we are going to be talking about this guy, John Melvin Liggett. Remember that name. We will get back to him, and yes, we are going down the rabbit hole. Oh, there's wonderful Penn Jones, Jim Mars, Sheila, she's wonderful. All right, so here we are. D.H. Byrd, don't forget, D.H. Byrd, good friends with LBJ, just happened to own the Texas School Book Depository. Took the window from the 6th floor and showed everybody at dinner parties. We talked about that. The audacity of these people. That gets to me. All right, so here we go. Thomas Shipman's death. We talked about this last week, last episode. This was the Secret Service driver for Kennedy and others, but mostly Kennedy. And he had a fatal heart attack at Camp David, okay, October 14th, 1963. 5 weeks before they had to get somebody else who didn't love the Kennedys, who didn't love his job and, his duty to protect the president and take it very seriously. He's a great driver. He dies right after he passes his health exam with flying colors. His family says suspicious death. They thought it was very strange too, but they were under a lot of pressure. Odd that. And Bill Greer winds up driving for him. So they're planning it back in October. Before that, even when did they shut down all? Put a flash hold. I believe that's what they called it in the CIA and the FBI on Oswald. Said nope, he's out of commission. 2 weeks before. We can go all the way back to September on Oswald. We can go all the way back to the 50s on Oswald and Hoover talking about, hey, there's somebody using Oswald identity here. So if you don't think Oswald was involved in intelligence, you need to think again. And this is when they started setting up, got Greer in the seat, put him behind the wheel. So what does Greer do? He drives to Parkland. Okay. Yeah, Shipman's death 5 weeks before JFK assassination is noted in some conspiracy circles due to his role and timing, with speculation that ensured a different driver, Greer, for Dallas. Absolutely, it did. And Carousel Club card from Jack Ruby's place. Okay, there's Shipman there. I wanted to show you this just to let you know this is about all he got. They kept it very quiet. They've already started the cover up before any shot was fired. Look at that. This is all he got. Now, any other Secret Service man that died in duty or otherwise after retirement always got a big ceremony, everything else. This is what he got, a couple of short little news clips in the paper. This is what we're talking about tonight. This is the door we're kicking in. This is, of course, JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald, and Officer J.D. Tippit. Now, in the Warren report, this is what it looked like, the official report on the assassination of President Kennedy as overseen by the overlords of coup d'etat. Okay, so the Warren report, released on September 24th, 1964, concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the murder of the Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit on November 22nd, 1963. Now remember, this is the first thing Oswald is getting stuck on Oswald. They didn't tell him you're being arrested for the shooting of an officer. He found out again from the reporters yelling out in the hallway in one of his little moves from room to room or whatever when he got to yell out. Eventually, you get to see the downfall of Oswald, where he feels like, I'm just going to make a phone call and get out of here, to, oh, shoot, I'm trapped like a rat. Okay. So the first thing they pin on him is Officer Tippit, the shooting of J.D. Tippit. Now, one can only speculate and imagine that, and the way they were acting and what they did, in fact, was to just insinuate that he's a mad dog killer. He's running around the streets of Dallas, shoots the president, and now he shoots the officer. Of course he did. And then he went to the theater. All right. That's basically what the Warren report is telling you. All right. And according to the report, approximately 45 minutes after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Tippit stopped Oswald in Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas because he resembled the description of the suspect broadcast over the police radio. Now, again, these police radio recordings are all messed up. They've been replaced. There wasn't any telling Officer Tippit, we want you to be in Oak Hill and look for this, this mad dog killer running the streets. None of that till after the fact. And it was an obvious dupe. So we're not really sure how Officer Tippit got there or why he chose to get there. We can only assume he was looking for Oswald. But we don't know how he got those orders, because he's the only one that isn't downtown where the president just got shot. Now, when Officer Tippit gets shot, there was many police that acted completely different from how they acted when the president got shot. And one of the Dallas police was actually quoted as saying, well, that meant a lot more to us. The president getting shot was no more than hanging from a tree. Keep in mind what you're dealing with, the times you're dealing with, and understand that it's pretty undisputed that at least 3/4 of the Dallas Police Department was involved in card-carrying members of the KKK. In fact, there was a conversation between one of the journalists, it might have been Mark Lane, and one of these detectives, and he got all caught up talking about his escapades undercover trying to infiltrate the KKK. And he was talking about all the castrations and the hangings and the things that they would do. And the reporter was probably about had enough, where he just looked at me and said, "Well, I'm sure you went and reported all those crimes, right?" And the guy just got real quiet and changed the subject. The times that this was happening. So now you've got an officer down. But why was he there? Officer Tippett was sitting at a gas station right at the end of a bridge where you're coming out of Dallas. So if you were leaving Dallas, you were coming that way, you'd have to pass through there. When asked later on, nobody had interviewed this man, Officer Tippett's father. Years later, he said that he was told by Tippett's wife that he was looking for Oswald. Now, how did he know that? Supposedly, Tippett went home for lunch, 12 o'clock. And although his wife's story has changed multiple times since the shooting and is still protected until her death, not too very long ago, said that he came home for lunch around 12 o'clock. She made him a sandwich and some fried potatoes, and he ate and left early. He usually stayed an hour. He didn't stay that long. So he left there before 12:30. The president was shot at 12:30 in Dallas, dead instantly. He didn't die at 1 o'clock like the death certificate says. Okay. So as Tippett exited, okay, wait a minute, right here. So description on the radio. So as Tippett exited his patrol car, Oswald drew. So he sees Oswald walk down the street. Somebody walking down the street. They're saying, the Warren report says this. Oswald drew a .38 revolver and fired 4 shots, 3 hitting Tippett in the chest and 1 in the right temple, killing him instantly. Tippett was pronounced dead at Methodist Hospital at 1:25 p.m. Now look at this timing. Okay, this is Warren report. Witnesses, including Helen Markham, identified Oswald as the shooter, and cartridge cases found at the scene were matched to the revolver in Oswald's possession at the time of his arrest. The report states that Oswald fled the scene, was observed acting suspiciously, and was arrested shortly afterward in the Texas Theater after attempting to evade police. Now, there's a few things on here that are true. The date's right. And he was found at the Texas Theater, and Tippett was shot. Other than that, a lot of this is bunk. And can all be researched and found out as such. So here's what happened as far as the official Warren report. At 12:30 p.m., the assassination in Dealey Plaza. Official narrative of the Warren report is that Oswald fires 3 shots from the 6th floor Texas School Book Depository, killing President Kennedy and wounding Governor Connally. He hides the rifle and flees the building within minutes. Now, the conspiracy view, many researchers have come through and pretty much settle on this or other flavors of this theory. Many theorists argue Oswald did not shoot Kennedy or was not the only shooter. Some claim multiple gunmen were involved from the grassy knoll or other locations, supported by eyewitnesses' accounts of hearing shots from different directions. Others suggest Oswald was a patsy set up by a larger conspiracy involving the CIA, mafia, or anti-Castro groups, all of the above. Some theories propose Oswald was in a lower floor in the depository in the lunchroom during the shooting, as reported by witnesses like Carolyn R., the woman on the stairs, and thus could not have been the shooter. Okay, so this is just like kind of, a summation of it. The official narrative, 12:31 to 12:33. Now, times are important here because the Warren Commission tried so hard to fudge times on here from the time that what's his name was upstairs at the window actually eating the chicken sandwich, and he stuck to his time and they couldn't stretch it so Oswald could get up there and create his sniper's nest, to Helen Markham pushing time, to the guy managing the theater. He's trying to change times there. He goes, I know what time I started the movie, and they couldn't move certain people. Okay, And the timelines on this Tippit shooting are so important. Hello, everybody. So good to see you, Vixen, Doe, Chris, and everybody, and Henry. And I just froze. I just love y'all. And if I missed you, I love you too, honest. So theorists question the timeline's feasibility, arguing that nearly impossible for Oswald to hide the rifle, descend 6 flights of stairs, and appear calm in the lunchroom within drinking a Coke within 90 seconds. Some claim Baker's encounter supports Oswald's innocence, as he was not on the 6th floor. So Baker, it was Officer Baker, and he's there with the manager. Remember, they run by, if you saw any of the shows I've been showing, he runs by, and there's Oswald drinking a Coke by the vending machine in the lunchroom downstairs, not sweating, cool as cucumber. And they come by, and he goes, hey, hey, will you stop where you are? And the manager says, no, he works here. And they go, okay. And then he just, the president's been shot. They say one of those things, and they go up the stairs to look for the shooter. Okay. Side note, what? Hang on, tell me. I send you a Bacon song. I feel like making love. Can't wait to see it. Okay. So that's what's going on. Blah, 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 blah. Some claim Baker. Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Roger Craig. Based on witnesses, Roger Craig's disputed testimony. He was the one. Now he worked for he was an officer in the Dallas Police Department. He's the one that they tried to protect. He lasted a little bit, but they got him and they killed him. Ruled suicide for telling the truth, I believe, allegedly. So he's the one that said that he saw. Remember, he said this last week. He saw somebody looking like Oswald get in a station wagon with a dark complected man and took off, and he couldn't get. It was so busy, so many people, he couldn't get across the street. Remember here? Okay, so he's the one that went up to Flint, who was in charge of the investigation in the Dallas Police Department, and said, I saw the station wagon, describes the station wagon, and the guy, the head honcho in charge, says, that's Ruth Payne's car. Don't bring her into this. Now, that's a hell of a thing for an officer in charge of a murder investigation to say to somebody, to another police officer. That's Ruth Payne's car. Don't drag her into this. So Ruth Payne is all over this too. And her and her husband both, more than likely, highly involved in intelligence. I mean, it's all over the place. She could have her own 6 episodes. So there's that. All right. So at 12:40 to 12:45, Oswald's traveled to the rooming house. The official narrative is Oswald walks 7 blocks east to board a bus at Elm and Murphy Streets, gets stuck in traffic. Okay, the bus gets stuck in traffic, and he gets off the bus and takes a cab to the location. This is the official Warren report. Okay, they got him. They got to get him to where Officer Tippit is in a hurry. So they got him taking a bus that gets stuck in traffic, and then it supposedly takes a taxi. Let me tell you guys, this door. Now we're in this room now, and it's a hell of a maze. It's like a labyrinth, an enigma wrapped in a puzzle. The whole, the saying. So anyway, he gets stuck in traffic. He gets off the bus. Now again, nobody could identify this guy. The whole bus thing is including the bus driver. We'll hear more about that later, but it's sticky. Okay. Takes a cab to the location near his rooming house at 1026 North Beckley Avenue in Oak Cliff, arriving around 1 p.m. Okay. So now it's 1 p.m. All right. I can tell you from experience that the manager of the theater says that the movie starts at 1:06. That's when they start rolling the cartoons or the prelim or the newsreel or whatever at 1:06. All of this has been highly investigated, trust me. The conspiracy theorists with foil hats dispute the bus and cab timeline, citing inconsistencies in witness accounts. Right, the bus passenger Mary Bledsoe's reliability wasn't so much. Some of these people were scared. Some of them just made up stuff. Who knows? But nothing's really sticking with the bus thing. The cab driver, William Whaley, had a vague recollection of the drop-off point, and some claim Oswald was driven to Oak Cliff by conspirators to stage his movements, or that a double was used to create a trail. That's very possible too. Others point to alleged sightings of Oswald elsewhere in Dallas during this period, suggesting he wasn't even in the depository or on the bus. So, like I said, this rabbit hole is like a hole. Once you get down in it, and you just pick which trail you want to take, and they all come back around to, we've been lied to. All right. So, witnesses. What are the witnesses saying and why? One of the three main witnesses that the Warren Commission used was Warren Reynolds, Helen Markham, and Johnny Brewer. Johnny Brewer was a manager or something of a shoe store. Helen Markham was just getting a bus going to work. She works at this little barbecue place where, oddly enough, Officer Tippett worked on the side. He had a lot of side jobs, this guy, right? He's married. He's got a couple kids, 3 or 4. They own 2 houses. He's making about $425 a month. So you got 2 houses. I mean, they rented one, but still, that's a little rough to keep that up. He's got all these little side jobs. So he's doing security at like some of the little bars. He's doing security to watch the kids on weekends, keep them, those hoodlum teenagers, under control at the barbecue place and all these other things. And apparently he either is or isn't banging half the waitresses there. He's got this mistress. She gave 2 interviews. Supposedly that was the house. He wasn't parked far from, didn't get shot far from one of his mistress's houses. He either did or didn't ask for a divorce from his wife that morning. There's stories out there that says his wife possibly asked for a divorce. There's stories that they went out the night before and danced to their favorite song on the jukebox. Again, don't know where Tippett lands in all this. Here's the thing. He's also been said that he was the guy in the uniform behind the grassy knoll. He made the shot and the puff of smoke and all this. Again, you guys can dig around that and research all you want to. The thing is the guy was there. He's the only cop out there, supposedly. And then you start hearing all the strange things. The 3 witnesses the Warren report used were the ones that went with his narrative. Now, they all went with their narrative, the Warren report narrative, that Oswald did it and could identify Oswald under extenuating circumstances. Okay? I'm going to show you one. I'm going to show you another. That's the theater, I think. All right. Let me go back here. All right. Let's do this. Let's hear from one of these witnesses. Looking at these people, like them by name. All right, now he was. Let's see the man himself. Now, supposedly this is a rare video of Tippett coming back from lunch, and somebody did a little video of him. So this is the man we're talking about. Let's give him a little look. Officer Tippett. Now to think, that's exactly what he did right before he went off and got shot. Nice little fence, nice little house, couple kids. Now, was he involved? I don't know. His actions were a little. I think he was looking for Oswald. I think he may have known that his job was to find Oswald or whoever it was that, he was told to find. Did he know Oswald? He may have. Pretty darn sure he knew Ruby. All the cops hung down at the carousel. Many people saying that he was seen with certain people and back and forth again. It's hard to say. But here's the thing, just like Kennedy, he didn't deserve to be shot this way. Okay? Okay, the witnesses. Here we go again. Trying not to hit the wrong buttons here. Okay. This was if I can get this one first. Dallas police officer. That's a railroad worker. Tippett Hospital 104. Okay, here we go. Oh. Oh, oh, oh. Where the hell did she go? This is Helen Markham, and you're going to love her. They tried to say she's crazy. She picked out Tippett out of a lineup after he said, "My name is Lee Harvey Oswald, and I work at the school book depository," up against some teenage kids. She said, "Yeah, that's him, the one with the black eye." Okay. And she reenacted this. This is her first one that she did for Mark Lane. And she did this every decade that it came around after the fact until she died. And you be the judge.
Then he got out of the car, slow motion. He calmly crawled out of this car, and he started round to the front of the car. And just as he got even with the front wheel on the driver's side, this man shot him 3 times in the wink of your eye. And then he turned and he was fooling with this gun, and he came back down 10th Street toward me. And he saw me, he stopped. And he looked at me, I looked at him. And he was serious. His eyes were big, and of course mine were too. And all it was, I put my hands above my face like this, real tight, closed my eyes, and I stood there. And then I opened my fingers, opened my eyes, and gradually pulled them down. Well, I don't know what happened to him, but he just went off in a little trot across the vacant lot out here. And then the police came. They take me down to the city hall. And, of course, they got the statement. And then I identified him in the lineup.
She's fun. Helen's fun. And they used her in the Warren Report. And listen, they had her in that room for I don't know how long trying to get her story just right. Hello, Val. Nice to see you, hon. It's just, she's a trip, Val, I'm sorry. She's an absolute trip, but she repeated that okay. So that's the Warren. That's the Warren Commission's best witness. They needed another one though, and I hope I can find this one. Okay, so they needed another one. Let me see if I can find this one. And they got Reynolds, and if I can't find that, I'll pull it up. Here's one that they did not use. What the hell? I need my whatchamacallit back. This young lady, well, here's the thing. She didn't speak. Mark Lane got her on film, got her to give her witness statement. Nobody else ever came to see what she had seen. No FBI, nothing else. She'll tell you herself. She's hard to understand, but just kind of listen real close. And then she disappeared, and nobody has any idea what happened to her. Keep in mind, the police department, 3/4 are in a group that just don't have, just not good. Not good at all. All right, and here she is, and her name is Aquila Clemens. This is what she saw. Something totally different. Hell, Markham.
Mrs. Clemens, where were you on November 22nd, 1963?
I was working for Miss Smotherman, 327 East 10th, just down the block from where Tippett was killed.
Did you know Officer Tippett?
Yes, I saw him pretty many times.
And did you hear the shots?
Yes, I heard the shots.
And what did you do?
I ran out into the street and looked down the street, and I ran back down the street where he was lying, and I looked at him.
Now, when you heard the shots and you went out of the house, did you see a man with a gun?
Yes, I did.
What was he doing?
Oh, he was reloading it. When I said he was reloading his gun.
And how would you describe that man?
Well, he's kind of chunky. He's kind of heavy. He wasn't a very big man.
Was he tall or short?
Yeah, he's kind of short guy.
Short and heavy.
Yes.
Was there any other man there?
Yes, there's one on the other side of the street. All I know, he told him to go.
Mrs. Clemens, the man who had the gun, did he make any motion at all to the other man across the street?
No more told him to go.
Well, he waved his hand and said, go on.
Go.
And then what happened with the man with the gun?
He unloaded and reloaded.
And what did the other man do?
Man kept going straight down the street.
And then did they go in opposite directions?
Yes, they were. They weren't together. They went this way from each other. The one done the shooting went this way. The other went straight down past street that way.
What was the man who did not do the shooting, but the man who went in the other direction from the man with the gun? What was he wearing, if you remember?
Well, first I remember he looked like light khakis and a white shirt.
And was he tall or short?
He was tall.
Was he heavy or thin?
He was thin.
But the one who had the gun, seconds after Tippit was shot, he was short.
Yes, he was short and kind of heavy.
Now, did you testify before the Warren Commission about this case?
I haven't said anything to anyone.
Did anyone come to see you after the murder of Officer Tippit?
Yes, he was a man came, I don't know what he was. He came to my house and talked to me. But I don't know what he looked like a policeman to me.
He did. Did he have a gun?
Yes, he wore a gun.
Mrs. Clemens, how long after Tippit was shot did this man with a gun come to visit you?
About 2 days. It was about 2 days. Said that I might get hurt. Someone might hurt me if I would talk.
About what you saw?
What I saw. He just told me to be the best if I didn't say anything because I might get hurt.
You need to see this if you suffer from
And then she disappeared. Nobody knows where she was right after this. So you tell me that they would have a problem with coming to get a timid woman like that and try to tell the truth? Saw 2 men. So I read to you what the Warren report said. No other woman was on there, only Helen Markham. Okay. Helen said that she spoke to J.D. Tippit. Disappeared. Still missing, yes. Nobody can find her. No researcher that's ever done their due diligence and best to look for her has ever been able to find her. So many people in this story that's true of. Absolutely. So Helen Markham also said in her statement that she spoke to Tippit for 20 minutes. He was trying to say something, but I don't know what it was. Man was shot in the head. Right in the head. Right here and out the back. Now, one witnesses said Veronica Davis across the street. There was another man 15 feet from him in a pickup truck. Benavides. He saw the man shoot. He didn't see much. He came up after because when he heard shots, he ducked down and hit the curb and then ducked down in his old truck and sat there for a while. He was the one that went up to the car and tried to use the radio to say officer down, didn't know how to work it. Another witness came from the other side of the block and he was able to use the radio, and they're the ones who called for help. Markham wasn't there talking to Officer Tippit. Nobody else saw Helen Markham there talking to Tippit. Tippit was shot in the head. And the witnesses that saw that said the shooter or shooters shot Tippit 3 times, then started to walk away, came back, leaned over him, and shot the coup de grace right into the head. Tippit was laying there on his gun. He had pulled his revolver. Now, what we believe actually happened was he was looking for Oswald. He pulled up. This person comes to the side, passenger side of the door, leans in. Of course, no fingerprints were found. Says something to him, starts to walk away. Officer Tippit gets out. This is when the shooting happened. There's so much else that is out there on this. John Armstrong, 35 years before he put out his book, he researched this, and he's got a whole thing where he's got maps and everything else tracing everybody that was involved. There's 2 wayward cops, Croy, who was basically didn't even carry a gun. He was like an apprentice almost, you know. Wasn't an official member. He was kind of like a hire on when you needed. He's just wandering around, nothing to do. President just got shot in Dealey Plaza, and this guy's walking around with this other guy who's he is a police officer, but he works in personnel. He's the head of personnel. His name was Westbrook, and he was all over the place too, just like Ruby. Ruby was all over the place. Ruby lived just a few blocks. I think it was like a block and a half from where Officer Tippit was shot. Attila Clemens saw she saw a short, chubby little guy and a tall, skinny, blonde-headed guy. Well, Ruby lived with a tall, skinny, blonde-headed guy. He was a male prostitute from California. And he was probably a low-level hit person or go collect money, or, you know, he was just that type of guy. There was 3 people living in Ruby's place. He was one of them. So is it possible it was Ruby? Ruby was everywhere. Do you think it was possible that the mob said, hey, we got to take out Tippit too? I don't know why, but you got to do it. That's part of it. And one went that way and one went this way. And the Warren report just somehow got Helen Markham, who has ties with Ruby, by the way. All these people do. We're all interwoven. They're either interwoven in this group over here in New Orleans, or they're over here in the Mexico ties, or they're over here in the Dallas ties, or they're in the secret society government ties. They're all connected. So what do if you have a witness who won't say what you want them to say? Wonder if there was any like that. And what did they have to say at first? Let's look at Reynolds here. Warren Reynolds. He's like my favorite witness in the JFK. Now, Reynolds, you must understand, this is after the fact. This is after he told Warren Report what they wanted to hear, because here's the thing. He was witness to one man running away, and he wouldn't say it was Oswald. He said he didn't look anything like Oswald. Well, what happened to him? They shot him in the head. And he miraculously lived. It was a through and through. So funny. After he recovered and he got better, he was willing to give another statement. And this time, he could absolutely, positively identify Oswald as the shooter. And the Warren Report said, come on in, give us your testimony. We're ready to hear it. Here it is in his own words. Incredible, isn't it?
And when he got to the corner there, well, he put the gun in his belt like this, and then he walked up the street.
And what did you do?
Well, I ran out to where I was even with him, and then I walked on the opposite side of the street, even with him. When he got to the service station, he went behind it, and I ran over and went behind it too, but I couldn't find it. I looked in the cars, under the cars. I couldn't find him.
Were you actually trying to catch him or just keep up with him?
Just keep up with him.
And what happened then?
Evidently, he got away, and the police came, and I went on back to work. Well, when I walked in, I went to turn these lights off. I turned these first two switches before a man shot me that was hidden right behind me. And then I ran out of the building.
Did you get a look at the man?
Not a good look.
Did you see him to be able to tell anything about him?
No, sir.
Around the corner, Ted Calloway was tending to business at his used car lot.
There's another one. So here's the thing. Took him 3-4 months in the hospital, recovered where he could set up. Looks pretty good, doesn't he? And then he could identify Oswald, and he could go in there and tell the Warren report, yeah, that's your boy. That's the one. Now, as an extra side of fries with this, supposedly the guy that shot him, they researched and figured out who it probably was. So the police officers, we're going to go investigate it. The Dallas Police Department goes in to talk to this guy. And he's got an alibi. His girlfriend, who happens to work for Ruby, he was with me all night. So what happens to her a couple days later? All of a sudden, according to her, there's a knock at the door. She has no idea what's going on. Hey, Tuber Chat, thanks for coming in. Word up, baby. So she doesn't know what's happening. The police are at the door. Well, we have a domestic disturbance. She said there's nothing going on here. And the roommate comes out of the bathroom or whatever, no, two girls living together, working for Ruby. They're strippers, they're whatever, you're dancers, entertainers. And she's the one who gives this guy the alibi. So he couldn't have possibly shot this poor guy in the basement, right? So he could, miraculously see Ruby again, And so they take her in, domestic disturbance, even though both girls in the apartment are saying there's no domestic disturbance. They get her, lock her up, put her in the jail. She hangs herself with her pants in the jail cell. Suicide. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Yeah, there's another one. Okay, so now you have Reynolds. Now here's the shoe store guy. Now let me show you this. All right, so what they want you to believe is that Oswald at 12:45 walked 7 blocks east to board a bus. Okay, we heard about the bus and the cab and everything. Oh, wait a minute. One more over. Sorry. All right, this is the bus driver. This is a bus driver who couldn't identify Oswald. All the people on the bus were supposedly on the bus. One day he was a young black man. One day it was all over the place. This guy lived because he was just so goofy and everything kept changing all the time. They didn't bother killing him. But the cab driver, they killed him. Cecil J. McWaters as the Dallas bus driver who, according to the Warren report, drove the bus Oswald boarded at approximately 12:40 on the November 22nd, 1963. Yeah, keep in mind, also, there was a guy who was working with the FBI, who was a photographer, that got a picture of this bus. Of all the things going on in Dallas, there's a picture of the bus arriving and the bus taking off. Why was he there taking pictures of this bus? That's so weird, right? Okay, and the building. Before the shooting started, he's got pictures of the school book depository before the shooting started. You could tell by the crowd and where everybody was. Insane, because they didn't have timestamps on certain film back then. It was before I think Polaroids were just coming out. That's how Beverly, what's her name? The one that took the picture, Babushka lady? Said Jean Hill. Anyway, one of them was dating somebody who had access to the new prototype for the camera for the Insta Polaroid, but most people didn't have them. So back then, the film was, 35. It was all the different stuff, but they usually didn't get a timestamp on it until after it was developed. You know what I mean? So anyway, you could tell by all the people and everything. He had pictures before the shooting. Oswald reportedly got on the bus, recognized by a former landlady, Mary Bledsoe, which was all over the place, but exited after a few minutes due to traffic requesting a transfer. McWaters testified to the Warren Commission through his identification of Oswald was less definitive than other witnesses, and he noted the bus was stuck in traffic near the assassination site. So crazy. That's all over the place. McWaters' testimony has been questioned by conspiracy theorists due to inconsistencies such as his vague description of the passenger and reliance on Mary Bledsoe's identification. Some deemed unreliable, I'd say. All right. 103. Now we're cooking. We're getting right up there to where Tippett's getting shot by whoever. Oswald at the rooming house. Now, supposedly at 1 to 103, Oswald takes the taxi, has the taxi drop him off a couple of blocks, still in a hurry, Mad Dog Killer, gets out of the taxi, runs the rest of the way, goes to this boarding house he's in where he's bought the curtains with the curtain rods. Sure. Yeah, because that's what you do when you're in boarding house. You start redecorating. And goes in. Now, this woman knows what time it was because the president had just been announced getting shot. She's trying to get the show. She knows what she's watching on the news, and she's up trying to adjust the TV with the antenna, with the rabbit ears, right? And Oswald comes in the front door, all right? Many people have put words in her mouth and said things, and again, it's fruit from a poison tree. What's usually stated is that she says, he came in, he got his jacket and his gun. As I'm standing there, adjusted the TV, I said, the president shot. He doesn't say anything and he leaves. But right before he leaves, right when he goes into the room, a police car pulls up out front and taps the horn twice. Tit, tit. She says it just like that. Tit, tit. Like, hey, we're out here. And then pulls off, goes up a little bit, a couple houses, and then turns right and goes that way. When Oswald leaves, he runs towards where the police car went. Who was in a police car? Was it Tippett? We don't know. Was it this other Westbrook and Croy? I don't know. I don't know who it was. She got the number, and she stated the number as 207. 207 was a car that was not accounted for, and it was said that it was the one that Westbrook was riding around in that day. I don't know. I think Tippett's was 10, something like that. They've put different words in her mouth, but 207 was a car that was missing and not accounted for in the Dallas Police Department that day. Go figure. So, official narrative is that Oswald arrives at his rooming house where housekeeper Arlene Roberts sees him enter, change clothes, and leave within a few minutes, reportedly grabbing a pistol and a jacket. Now, if he went in his room, shut his door to grab his jacket, how the hell did she know he went in and grabbed his pistol? How did she see that? Doesn't make sense, does it, folks? She's still there working with the TV. Roberts later notes a police car number 207 briefly stopping outside and honking twice. Did it? Okay. So let's hear her say it. Let me see if I can find it. Because I believe listening to them, you know, people make up stuff, they put stuff in their book, they just, and then everybody just goes off of that. We're used to that in the paranormal with and other true crime. They do it all the time, so you have to go back to the beginning. Richard Dodd, which one is it? It's not that one. Sorry, guys, it's hard to tell with all these things open up in here. I think it's this one. No. Building manager. Oh, come on. I have to go and find it for you. All right. I'll tell you what. Let's jump ahead. I'm going to find that, and we're going to listen to a titch bit of this, because this is about, we're going back to the 2 caskets, 2 coffins. Was there 2 coffins? We heard a little bit of this in The Men Who Killed Kennedy, going back 3 episodes, where we talked about they had to take the handles off of this beautiful coffin that they had the cross on top. You heard that this is the coffin they were wrestling over, the Secret Service people trying to take Kennedy's body away from the doctors. Dallas is trying to hang on to it, and they're saying, no, we're gonna take it with us. And it's in this casket. It's like a bronze with the handles, real nice. They describe to you how they wrapped the body in the head and put it in this casket, right? And they had to take the handles off to get it into this plane. Well, what happened there? And who can tell us about it? Well, the people that were scared to talk about it came forward. And this is another researcher I want to introduce you to. We're going to watch just a few minutes of this because they explain what happened with the bodies better than I can. And his book and documentary is called Best Evidence. And it's Mr. Lipton. And he, about 35 years studying this, and I believe this was done in 90. So let's see where we are here. Yep, here he is right here. David Lipton, Best Evidence, the JFK Assassination, 1990 documentary, and he's going to interview the people that handled the body on both ends, I believe.
What about the head snap? It was never mentioned. What about the witnesses? They were wrong. They heard echoes. And what about the Dallas doctors? They too were simply wrong. But I couldn't accept this. It all seemed too improbable. And yet, a Warren Commission attorney told me that in order to believe that President Kennedy was shot from the front, you had to believe the two Navy autopsy doctors who had testified before the commission had lied under oath. That too seemed improbable. And so I struggled with a contradiction. Which evidence to believe? The Dallas evidence, which seemed to indicate that President Kennedy was struck from the front, or the government conclusion backed by the Bethesda autopsy that the president was struck from behind. Both couldn't be correct, or so it seemed. And then I thought of a possibility nobody had addressed, that nobody was lying, that everybody was telling the truth, but that somebody had altered the body. That's right, there had been surgery on the body prior to the autopsy, not clinical surgery to save the president's life, but post-mortem surgery to remove bullets and alter wounds. If true, the doctors didn't lie to the investigators, the body lied to the doctors. The body is evidence, the best evidence, and this post-mortem surgery is a crime. At the very least, it's an obstruction of justice. At worst, it's part of a conspiracy to take the president's life and then falsify the facts about his death. This illicit surgery is the central thesis of my book, Best Evidence. It took 15 years to research and write, and was published in January 1981. The film you're about to see was produced about 3 months earlier, in October 1980. Its purpose was to get the key witnesses on camera before they themselves realized the full implication of the information they possessed. The film deals with a single issue, the interception and the alteration of President Kennedy's body prior to autopsy. And the story begins in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, at Parkland Memorial Hospital. At 1 p.m. in Parkland Hospital, President Kennedy was pronounced dead. His body was returned to Air Force One and flown to Washington. 6 hours after the shooting, an autopsy was performed at Bethesda Naval Hospital in the morgue of the U.S. Navy Medical School, where Dennis David was chief of the day. 17 years later, Dennis David, now a food company executive in Hoopeston, Illinois, is talking about what he saw that night. Are you scared?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I would have been, I know that for a number of years afterwards, I was afraid to say anything about what I saw that night.
But you tell me then that if I had had this conversation with you in 1964 or 5, and I told you this or showed you these pictures and we went into the implications of the sequence that you witnessed, that you would be more frightened.
In 1964 or 65, I wouldn't even have talked to you.
Dennis David is one of several people who are now talking to me about what they saw that day. I spoke with the funeral attendant who placed the president's body in its casket in Dallas, the Bethesda medical technician who removed the body from its casket in the autopsy room, and the X-ray technician who participated in the autopsy. What these men say now about what they saw then casts doubt on the official version of the events that day, because all these men provide new information about the most important evidence in the case, President Kennedy's body. In any shooting, the autopsy report, which describes the body, is used to determine the facts of the case.
The Warren Commission, therefore, relied on the way the body looked at the time of the autopsy in Bethesda to reach its conclusions about what happened in Dallas. But the standard legal procedure didn't work this time. And in my book, Best Evidence, I explain why the autopsy failed to reveal the truth about Dallas. Between the Dallas shooting and the Bethesda autopsy, 6 hours later, President Kennedy's body was secretly removed from the casket. It was then surgically changed. Wounds were altered. Bullets were removed. The body was returned in time for the autopsy, returned as a medical forgery which told a false story of the shooting. And here is evidence that the body was indeed surgically changed. This is the FBI report written by the two agents who actually attended the autopsy. James Siebert and Francis O'Neill wrote that when the body was removed from the casket, it was, quote, apparent that a tracheotomy had been performed, as well as surgery of the head area, namely in the top of the skull. In fact, no surgery of the head was performed in Dallas, only a tracheotomy. So if this FBI report is correct, someone must have had access to the body before it reached Bethesda, and my witnesses indicate someone did. I've traced the journey of the body, beginning with Aubrey Reich. That afternoon, he worked for the O'Neill Funeral Home in Dallas. Now he's a sergeant with the Highland Park, Texas Police.
I helped put President Kennedy's body in a bronze ceremonial casket on November 22nd, 1963, at Parkland Memorial Hospital.
That evening at approximately 8 o'clock, the body arrived in a gray metal casket.
In Bethesda, Paul O'Connor was a medical technician who assisted the autopsy doctors. Today, he's a retired police officer and lives in Gainesville, Florida. When President Kennedy's body was brought to the morgue, what kind of casket was it in?
It was a typical, what I call a typical pinkish gray shipping casket. The type of casket that they usually ship bodies from one part of the country to the other. It was just a plain casket, I'd say cheap casket.
Could you please describe the coffin into which you put the body of the president?
It was a bronze metal coffin with it was a light bronze or a dark bronze coffin with lighter bronze handles on it. It was a very nice, expensive type casket.
It was a very plain casket, and when I say plain, I mean it was pinkish gray. It had pink and gray on the sides. There was nothing fancy about it as far as being bronze. It wasn't bronze.
About how much would you say it weighed?
I would venture to say it weighed close to 1,000 pounds.
About how much would you say it weighed?
Oh, with the body, maybe...
Without the body?
Oh, maybe 60 pounds.
Paul O'Connor's description of the casket brought to Bethesda was supported by Dennis David, who was there when the ambulance came in.
As I recall, it was a black unmarked ambulance. And we offloaded a casket, and it was carried into the autopsy room. This casket is a plain gray box, if you will, metal box. Anybody who's ever been in Vietnam would know what I'm talking about. We shipped about hundreds of bodies out of there in the same type of casket. It's just a plain shipping casket.
In the picture here, you can tell this is not a shipping casket. A shipping casket would be what they'd ship a body back from, say, Vietnam in. This couldn't be a shipping casket. This is a high-class casket here.
That was Aubrey Reich, who was in Dallas. I showed the same picture to Dennis David. I'm showing you here some pictures taken at Love Field in Dallas, Texas. Was that the casket you saw taken in the back entrance from at the loading dock?
You're talking about the black ambulance?
Yeah, the black ambulance?
No. As I said, the one that we offloaded there was a standard government issue type plastic metal, a metal, gray metal box that obviously is a casket, but nothing, not with the side arms or the side rails and all this, just handles on the side. Now, this wasn't the one that we offloaded.
Not only had the casket changed between Dallas and Bethesda, the wrapping around the body had changed too. According to the House Assassinations Committee, the body arrived at Bethesda in a body bag. That was not how it left Parkland Hospital.
They had him wrapped in sheets at the time. And when we picked him up to put him in there, he was still tripping quite a bit of blood from the wound in the back of his head, whatever caused it. We put some more sheets in a mattress liner, plastic mattress liner inside the coffin to soak up this blood that was dripping, We went on ahead and put him in the coffin and closed the lid.
Paul O'Connor describes the scene at Bethesda.
We opened the whole casket up, and there was a gray body bag, zipped shut. We unzipped the body bag, and the president's body was lifted out of the body bag. It's completely naked except for a sheet wrapped around his head, a bloody sheet.
Now, when you put the president's body into the coffin, did you put the president's body into a body bag?
No, sir.
Well, most people don't know what a body bag is, so I happen to get one, and I'd like to know if this is the kind of, this is a...
Typically, this is it. This is maybe not the model that we use, but as you see, it's got the zipper on it. It's heavy plastic, gauge plastic, and typical body bag.
There's a typical body bag.
Typical body bag.
Is this the kind of, basically, these...
Basically, this is the way it looked.
Aubrey, does this bear any resemblance to the mattress cover you used to line the coffin to keep the blood away from the bottom of the coffin?
No, sir. This one doesn't, no.
What is this?
This is what we call a crash bag, or body bag, you can call it. We call them crash bags.
And mattress cover wouldn't look like this at all?
No, sir. It was a plastic,
similar
to this, but mattress cover has no zipper.
And you didn't use a body bag for the president?
Sir. No way.
Absolutely no question about that?
No way.
How can you be certain?
I was there.
And you remember?
I remember picking him up. I was the one that had the blood on my shirt and everything from the body. If he'd been in a crash bag, you couldn't have got any blood on him because it's a sealed bag.
I told Reich about Paul O'Connor's account of opening a body bag. Top to the bottom, and he had to unzip the zipper.
He didn't get one from us.
I've interviewed the people in Dallas who put the president's body inside the casket in Dallas. There was no body bag used. For your information, those people...
That sounds strange.
That sounds what?
Sounds strange to me.
Is there any possibility you're confused that it was anything but a body bag? Could you...
Well, a body bag, a mattress cover, if that's what they said they used, does not have a zipper down the middle of it.
Paul, they said they didn't use anything. They did not use a mattress cover. They said a mattress cover was used to keep blood off the bottom, but they didn't put him inside anything.
Well, between Parkland and Bethesda, he was placed in a body bag.
This is one of the most unique and tragic moments in the history of Andrews Air Force Base.
The casket was different and the wrapping was different. But how could anything have been secretly changed? Wasn't Mrs. Kennedy always with the casket? She was, but unknown to her, the body was elsewhere. It did not arrive in the gray Navy ambulance that took Mrs. Kennedy and the ceremonial casket to Bethesda.
Now the ramp is being slowly lowered to the ground, containing the casket. And a gray U.S. Navy ambulance has pulled into sight and is now directly in front of the ramp in which the casket still rests.
Dennis, after all these years, how can you be certain the vehicle at the back was black?
Well, that's one of the things I remembered because Navy ambulances or military ambulances traditionally are gray. And I remember that night that was black because it wasn't gray.
Because it wasn't a military...
It wasn't a military vehicle.
Was it normal for non-military vehicles to put the loading dock?
No, not normally.
Dennis David was at the back of the hospital. He is one of several people whose accounts establish that the body arrived at the back before the Navy ambulance with the large Dallas casket arrived at the front.
After we offloaded and they took the casket, which we understood that had President Kennedy's body in it, I went back up front again to check my men on post.
While at the front, he witnessed the arrival of two more caskets. First, a second shipping casket was offloaded from a helicopter. It's not clear what role this casket plays. Then he saw the large Dallas casket arrive in the gray Navy ambulance from Andrews.
I was on the rotunda on the second floor looking out. I saw a helicopter land, and I saw again another casket, the shipping type, it was similar to the one we... Then the motorcade pulled up in the front, and I went back out in the passageway and was standing on the rotunda looking down into the foyer of the Naval Medical Center when Mrs. Kennedy or Jacqueline Kennedy came in.
No, you actually saw Jackie arrive at Bethesda?
Yes, I did. Later on, a bunch of us had working at night, we were talking about two caskets. I said something about it, and somebody said, well, there was another one on the gray ambulance that came in front of the entourage, and we couldn't figure out which casket had President Kennedy's body in, and some of the boys that were in the autopsy room said, well, he was in the first one, and that the other two were fakes. I don't know officially why there were three ambulances, but security was one of the rumors or one of the things that was speculated about.
Dennis David didn't find it peculiar, but he saw the Navy ambulance arrive after a shipping casket was brought to the morgue. If he's right, then the body was at Bethesda before Jacqueline Kennedy.
Listen to
He's
that.
supported by Gerald Custer, the X-ray technician, now an X-ray technician in Pittsburgh. Custer says he was carrying autopsy X-rays to be developed when he saw Mrs. Kennedy arrive. When you encountered Jacqueline Kennedy, when you saw her in the lobby, had you already taken any X-rays?
The audacity
Well, we
of
had
that.
an armful at the time, and my apron or gown that I had on was bloody.
I want you to know, I would like to ask you how you react to the fact that if you already had the X-rays in your hand, the body was already in the morgue when she walked in the door, and yet she just got out of the ambulance containing the casket. How firm are you in your recollection that you saw Jackie when you already had taken X-rays? Is that without question, or would you say that you might waver on that?
No, because I'm almost assured I had X-rays in my arm at the time when I saw her. We had just finished taking some X-rays.
That would mean that the casket in the ambulance parked right outside is empty.
That would have to be it, because we had just left the morgue, and I'm sure that we took X-rays. I know we did, because we had a security man with us at the time.
Dennis, is it possible you're wrong about the sequence? That in order to the sequence is crucial. If the body was in the morgue before Jacqueline and the gray Navy ambulance arrived, then Jacqueline Kennedy was with an empty casket. But that you're wrong about the sequence. That what really happened is that first you saw Jackie come in the front, and then you went around back and saw a black vehicle arrive at the loading dock.
No way. I remember that vividly. The ambulance, and we offloaded a casket at the back of the hospital a good 15 or 20 minutes before Jackie Kennedy came in.
Dennis?
There you have it. I want you to think of the audacity of that. Now, I personally know that there was a soldier, one of Kennedy's close groups, and he's the one that went in and told the pilot, why aren't we taking off? What's going on? Why are we still here? You've got Air Force One is idling. They've got the casket on the back. They just took all the handles off. They've wrestled this casket in the back there. They've got the First Lady. All this ruckus is going. This is a big plane. Okay. All this is going on. He runs up front and he kicks open the door, throws open the door and says, you too, Scott. And why are we taking off? It's hot in here. The president's back there. We're all ready to go. The Secret Service is here. Let's go. And he says, no, I've been told I have to stay. By who? Who could tell you? The president. My president's back there laying out there bleeding to death in a coffin. Let's take off. No, the president. LBJ. What? What do you mean? They're stupefied. He runs back, checking on everything, talking to people. Nobody knows what's going on. He's looking all around the plane. What do you mean? LBJ's on the plane. He's moved all his stuff over and his crew over from Air Force 2. He's taken over the plane, and he's told them they have to sit on the tarmac. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard this story before, but imagine, if you will, it's hot. President's just been shot. You've got a lot of feelings back there, all in suits, all around this coffin. There, you've got a soldier that stood by that coffin at attention the entire flight. The honor, the feelings, the emotions back there. It's hot. There's no air moving when the plane isn't moving. It's just sitting there on the tarmac, idle, right? And this guy's told, what do you mean, President? LBJ, he's on the plane. He goes looking for LBJ. LBJ, this is where he finds him. Kid you not, in the bathroom. And he's pulling his crying thing because the guy he's up against, and I'm not throwing names out here because I don't want to get it wrong. I don't have it written down. I'm just top of my head. He goes in there and he goes, what's going on? And he says, he starts pulling this cry. What LBJ would do is, if you were tougher than him and he felt like he couldn't beat you, over control you, your personality, he would pull this, like, I need you now. I'm your president. And I'm, So he's pulling that, and it's not working on this guy. He's like, you got to toughen up. And there's, things where he smacked LBJ. I don't know that he did all that, but there was a tussle. You got to get up. You got to pull together, sir, president. And he's having a hard time, and he's running around trying to get all this together. LBJ goes to the bedroom where just, mere hours before JFK was sleeping. And he's laying in there. He takes off his shirt. He's making phone calls now from the plane because they're not recorded. So he's calling. First person he calls is his accountant, his taxes, his stocks. Long story. But anyway, he's making phone calls. Laying there with his shirt off, his legs out, and his, and who walks in the door stunned as deer in headlights? It's Jackie, still covered in her husband's blood. Awkward moment, right? All this is going on in that plane. Look at the timeline. Why are they sitting? Why did they just put this casket in the back and they're just sitting there waiting? Meanwhile, the limo's gone. It's on a plane. It's headed toward Dearborn, Michigan to get totally deconstructed, the windshield taken out, and the blood cleaned out, and everything else to get overhauled. The stories on that are back and forth. Did LBJ actually ride it? I think he did. Stories back and forth on that. I can't tell you one way or the other. I don't have anything that leans across that fence. But knowing LBJ, I'm betting he did. There's supposedly even a picture in there of Jackie and Robert Kennedy and his wife, I forget her name, all getting into that vehicle, going to some hootenanny. Can you imagine the irony and the sickening? I don't know, what do you call it? A coincidence? The deviousness of LBJ to do that. There's nothing that I've learned about LBJ that would make me doubt that he would do something like that, but I can't prove it. I don't have the picture. I don't know that much about the vehicle. So you be the judge. So we've got a coffin on this plane. We've got LBJ on the plane. We've got a very distraught and rightfully so mixed up and obviously shock Jackie Kennedy. And you've got the Secret Service. Some knew what was going on. Some didn't. That's my opinion. Well documented. I'm trying to throw all the theories out there because it's only fair. These people like Lipton and Jim Mars and all the people that have decades of research, they deserve to be taking in that information and that data, and you decide for yourself. We have stuff that's out since they wrote that. So, but that doesn't make it the facts that they brought forth any less powerful, right? So one of the most mixed up, shadowed thing is this timeline with Tippit being shot. They're trying to pin it on Oswald. They've got this crazy batshit nuts theory, but it worked. Hey, let's throw it out there, right? That if he shot the cop, he most assuredly, of course, he shot the president. So whatever reason, they're it seems to me that they're trying to pull this off. So you got Oswald. He either did or didn't take a bus. He either did or didn't take a taxi. He either did or didn't get a ride. If you listen to some witnesses that said, I saw him go out the back and get in a station wagon with some dark skinned fella. More than one witness saw that. The Volkswagen, the station wagon took off. Ruth Payne's vehicle. Who knows? We've got people trying to walk it. Can't be done all the times. We've got all this timeline trying to be pushed that Oswald could be there at the at the Tippit shooting. I got witnesses being killed, shot ahead to change their narrative to this was Oswald. But the ones that they shut up told you there was two. And they also said, more than one witness, that there was cops there parked in a car in an alley between two houses on the other side of Tippit's car. And that they were involved and talking to the two shooters. You're told in the beginning on the Warren report that the bullets matched up. They didn't. And explain to me why someone is supposed to be carrying a 6-shot revolver, shoots a cop 4 times, has to stop and reload, and then takes all the casings and throws them in the yard so they can be found. Sounds like they're trying to play evidence to me. But more than one person said that they saw them throwing bullets and casings and reloading and going in different directions. There was evidence planted. Another wallet was found with Oswald, all of his ID in it there. A jacket that supposedly belonged to Oswald was found mysteriously, although the police that turned it in couldn't remember who gave it to him or how they found it. All of this evidence being dropped. Let's just throw it down and see what sticks. We'll sort it later. 3 wallets. This wallet was seen on the news. Who was holding it? Westbrook. That rogue cop I told you about worked for personnel. What was he doing there? Other witnesses said he was there. They said he was the one that was in the car in the alley. Odd. Turning in evidence that he can't remember where he got it from. Turning in jackets that when researchers here recently in the past decade, 15 years, have been able to research that jacket back to an exclusive store in LA. The dry cleaning label that's inside was a dry cleaner in LA who was from LA. Ruby's friend, the tall, skinny, blonde dude, Crowley, who was living with Ruby. Tall, skinny, blonde guy, short, dumpy, fat dude, chubby dude. Witnesses were saying. Odd that. Where's Oswald? He's at the theater. He's at the theater, either buying a ticket or not buying a ticket. He had money. There was no reason to not buy a ticket. But somebody saw him. A shoe salesman or a store manager sees him and thinks so much of seeing somebody sneak into a theater that he called it in. And 25 cars show up because somebody didn't buy a ticket to go into a theater. Meanwhile, Oswald's in there. And he's sitting next to people. He sits down. There's about 20 people in the theater. It's an Audie Murphy movie. It's 2 war movies. And it's 12:30, 1 o'clock. It was 1 o'clock. About 1:05. The movie started at 1:06. There's 20 people in this theater. And it's reported that Oswald came in and sat down like with just a chair between and kind of sat down next to it with all the theater open, 20 people. Sat down for a minute and then didn't say anything, got up, went and did it again, sat next to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. And there's people and researchers who dispute all that. There's quite a lot of evidence that said that actually happened. There wasn't a lot of witnesses they allowed to speak out of the theater either. But what I heard sounds suspiciously like somebody's trying to meet up with somebody. It was also found on him a $50 bill, which I believe, and other people have said so too, was a dollar bill where you meet up and the other person's got the other half. You say a little secret word and your little decoder ring and all that shit, and you pass off whatever you're supposed to pass off. There's reason to believe that now there was a woman who was pregnant, about 8 months pregnant. 3 witnesses reported on that he eventually wound up sitting next to her. There was some movement, some talk, and then she got up and left, went to the bathroom, never to be seen again. But I'm sitting here thinking, in 1963, a pregnant woman, solo, very pregnant, goes into a theater to watch 2 war movies at 12:30 on a Friday afternoon in Dallas, 1963. 1963. She gets up and leaves. She's seen going in the bathroom, leaves the bathroom, goes out, never seen again. But Oswald sat there. Did she pass him off the gun? I don't know. Did the landlady see that? She couldn't have seen him get at the gun. I don't know. It's all speculation based on, you got to sort it. But he was in that theater. And when the cops were called, the cops came in. 25 cop cars show up for somebody not buying a ticket. And Oswald was said, there was a lot of things that they said he said, everybody's going to know who I am now, or something like that. But it was said, I believe he said that. 3 of the cops said he said that. But it was said, according to them, in a way of not, everybody's going to know who I am now, even though that was played. It was more like defeated. It was said that he pulled out a gun and tried to shoot a cop, but the gun didn't go off. There was some dispute about the cop knew this little thing where he could put his finger in there and stop it. I don't believe that happened. Because when they tried to test the gun, which did not match up to the bullets, oddly enough, that shot Tippit, even though you hear that, there's documentation that proves they did not. Just like there's lots of back and forth in this. They had to fix it because the firing pin was bent. Now, was he passed off a gun that he was going to pull for like suicide by cop kind of thing? And they were going to just shoot him and his wasn't going to work? We don't know. You think about it. But was he there to shoot Oswald? Was he there in time to shoot Tippit? There was no way. He's sitting in the theater, bouncing around, trying to find whoever we're supposed to meet, acting like very much like a little spy. Maybe working for the intelligence. Maybe just thought he was part of this, knew something was going on and had to get with his contact. Who knows? And it's been said that that is Philip Badley, what's his face? A handler. So the cops get him. He's arrested. Where's Tippit? What happened to Tippit? Well, we know he wasn't talking to Helen Markham because he's shot in the head. Instantly dead. Right? The other witnesses, more reliable, the ones that the Warren Commission didn't want to talk to, didn't use, describe the scene, call it in. The one guy tried to help the other guy work the radio. And all of a sudden, before the cops ever got there, the ambulance shows up, scoops up the body, puts the body in the ambulance, and takes off. Meanwhile, back on Air Force One. You with me? Are you tracking me? Got LBJ. What's LBJ doing? He pulled himself together after the little bathroom incident. He leaves the bedroom and excuses himself, apologizes all over the place to Jackie, right? Says he needs to get the oath. He needs to call Bobby back at the White House and get the oath from him, from the AG, from the Attorney General. Even though it's stated by more than one witness, he had a copy of it right here in his jacket after he put his shirt back on. And he goes out and he says, this airplane cannot move until I get a specific judge in here to swear me in. Holding that plane up for a reason. Just think on that just a second. We're almost out of here. So the official narrative is that after shooting Tippit, Oswald flees, discarding the shell casings and his jacket, later found to belong to someone from L.A. Remember I said that. He enters the Texas Theater in Jefferson Boulevard without paying, acting suspiciously around 1:30, 1:35. No, movie started at 1:06, sorry. Conspiracy theory. Theorists question why Oswald would flee to a public theater rather than escape Dallas entirely, suggesting he was either lured there or meeting a contact. Some claim the jacket size discrepancies noted wasn't Oswald, planted to incriminate him. It's true. That's what I believe. Others point to witness accounts of two men resembling Oswald in the area, fueling second Oswald theories. If that's true, it's actually a very plausible theory once you read it. You should check it out. I believe that's John Armstrong, and it's on YouTube in 4 parts, about an hour each. Very thorough, great research. You got to decide for yourself because it's pretty plausible. His theory about this, and he tells you when he's filling in the blanks. He says, I can't get this person from here to here, but I can get him here and I can get him here. So obviously he went one of these ways. It's that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of open holes he can't fill with evidence. So it's worth taking a try. And seeing what you think. But I've heard other big researchers kind of poo-poo him and throw it out and throw it. I just don't think we should be throwing out threads. Leave them all in there and let's see what the picture is, right? So anyway, some claim the jacket size discrepancies noted wasn't Oswald's, planted to incriminate him. Others point to witness accounts of two men resembling Oswald in the area, fueling second Oswald theories. The theories proximity to Tippit's murder about 0.6 miles, and Oswald's claimed demeanor buying popcorn in some disputed accounts. Yes. So somewhere along in there was several witnesses that said he left, went back out to the lobby, bought popcorn, was kind of waiting around, looking around in the lobby, and the manager can make that time because he knew we had to go back in and change a reel. So he knows how long Oswald was in there, and then he went back in, and then I think that's when he sat down, probably wound up sitting next to the pregnant woman. But either way, the manager places him here, and he's very serious about his times. And I believe in that. And the Warren Report couldn't get around that. And they kept trying to change the times. It's like, I work here. I know what time, so the Warren Commission, if they had a hard time with a witness that was kind of out in the public and already got out there, they'd work around it. They'd just kill somebody else to make it not work. I hate to say it, but it's true. Or whoever they were working with. You decide. So, anyway, some theorists alleged the theater was a prearranged rendezvous point for Oswald to meet a handler, only to be betrayed and arrested. I'm on that team. I really am. This is the jacket. Since then, has been proven to have come out of L.A. and an L.A. dry cleaner. That's one place I don't think Oswald was. However, Ruby's little friend definitely was. This is a picture of the wallet that was found at the Tippit killing. It was on the news. This is a clip from the news. Westbrook was holding it. He could not, even though he was head of personnel, he could not remember the names of any of the officers that gave him evidence that day. The wallet, bullet casings, as well as the jacket. So that's odd for somebody from personnel. Didn't know anybody. Weird, right? This was a copy here of the evidence in one of the wallets. Eventually, the Westbrook Tippit scene wallet disappeared, but the things that were found in the wallet wound up in the wallet. Can't make this up. Found in the wallet that the Dallas Police Department took off of him at the theater. So now instead of 2 sets of ID as Oswald and Harvey Alec Heidel, he's got 4 because they took everything they found in the Tippit scene wallet and put it in that wallet and just threw the wallet away. Freaking brilliant. So you're going to hear stuff here, folks, that you don't hear other places. Some you don't want to hear. All right, so this is the theater. It's still there today. That's the ticket booth. And I want you to see, this is the scene right here on the left here. Your left as well, I think. You can see the theater entrance. We're right out in front of where the shoe store was. You tell me you can see standing out here in your little vestibule in your store, in your shoe store, and you saw that man sneak into the theater without buying a ticket. Okay, here's another little tidbit. The manager here at the shoe store that made the phone call and said that suspicious man not buying a ticket at the theater, hurry quick, send 25 police cars. That guy wound up, after Ruby went to jail, get Ruby's apartment. Was there for years. Just a little side note. Here's the shoe store. He standing inside this vestibule and still down here saw Oswald dip into the. And this is the lady who, every time you asked her if she sold a ticket to Oswald or did he sneak in, she'd burst into tears and run away. This is her. I'm not making it up. So this is, again, another look at where the theater is and where the shoe store was. The official narrative of shoe store clerk Johnny Brewer notices Oswald's suspicious behavior and alerts the theater staff, who call the police. Officers enter the theater and Oswald resists arrest, attempting to draw his revolver, which misfires or is stopped. You decide. He is subdued and arrested around 1:50 p.m. Meanwhile, back on Air Force One. What's LBJ doing? And I wonder why. Think about that. Here's the theater. Conspiracy narratives, the arrest is a setup. Some claim Oswald was deliberately directed to the theater to be captured, possibly expecting to be extracted by conspirators who abandoned him. I believe that. That's my camp right there. The second Oswald theory persists here. Again, I lean towards John Armstrong. Listen to it. It holds water. With some alleging an imposter was arrested while the real Oswald escaped, though this is less common. I'm not really there. Others focus on the police's rapid response, very rapid for somebody not buying a ticket, suggesting they were tipped off by conspirators or corrupt officers. The revolver's alleged misfire or lack of fingerprints is cited as evidence, not a fingerprint on it. It was planted or not used by Oswald. Statements attributed to Oswald during the arrest. Well, it's all over now, he said, and I'm not resisting arrest. He knew what to do so he wouldn't get in trouble. He still thought he had phone calls and a saving in his future. Here's the supposed layout of where Oswald was picked up. The pregnant woman was way over here on the right. She went out this door and turned to her left and went to the bathroom, went out the front door and was never seen again. These were some of the witnesses that were there. There was more, and the Warren report would not let all. They were very picky about their witnesses. This is a picture of Croy and Westbrook. Westbrook was the head of the personnel of the Dallas Police Department. He was the one who found the wallet, was given the wallet, couldn't remember the names of any of the officers that gave him any of the evidence. This is outside when they got Oswald. You see him here in the middle, get ready to get in their car. And the movies were Cry of Battle, Van Heflin, and War is Hell. And again, quite the crowd there. All right. So this is the close-ups. If you listen to the John Armstrong, again, available on YouTube here. This was the two Oswalds. Very familiar looking. There's a lot to back this up. A lot of the theories really hold water. It's very interesting doors to open on this little dark alley here. But for time restraint, we're just going to move on. Wanted to jump to this. Now, these are the famous pictures here of LBJ unnecessarily swearing in because you're instantly president. If the president, you're vice president, you just move right up. And he insisted that this lady here, Judge Sarah T. Hughes, be the one to swear him in. Again, it stated that he had a copy of the oath in his pocket, but he made Bobby read it to mercifully. Just horrible. He said he was going to make their life hell, and I think he did. I really do. And then this is the famous wink. Once it was all done, he got his little wink from his buddy there, while standing next to Jackie, covered in her husband's blood. So, U.S. District Judge Sarah T. Hughes arrived at Dallas Love Airport shortly before 2:38 p.m. Look at that time. Swearing in likely before 2:30 and 2:35. Sarah T. Hughes was a longtime friend and political ally of Lyndon Baines Johnson. Their connection dated back to Texas Democratic politics, where Hughes had been active since 1930s. Now, the amount of time it took for the car to go pick her up, and he insisted on using this judge to swear him in. They had to hold that plane. What were they holding it for? What do you think? The delay was controversial. LBJ's decision to wait for Jackie and conduct the oath in the Air Force One instead of Air Force Two, or later in Washington, is seen by some as a power play to assert legitimacy, especially with Jackie's presence for optics. Robert Caro's biography notes LBJ ignored Kennedy family wishes for a private return of JFK's body, and his call to Bobby Kennedy for legal advice on the oath was contested, with unclear approval. Conspiracy theories suggested the delay in ceremony was staged to cover up LBJ's involvement in the assassination. I believe all that. I really do. And the way he looked at him, the way he stood near him, knowing this was coming, he told Madeline Brown the night before, it wasn't just a party, folks. It was a gathering of power. It was a gathering of control at Martinson's the night before, in my opinion. When he came out and told Madeline Brown that after tomorrow, those son of a bitch Kennedys are never going to bother me again, he meant it. He said, that's not a threat. It's a promise. He told her twice. Look at that face. And now you've got Tippett's role in this. Now, I might be batshit crazy, but here's another little sidebar. He may or may not have been the man in uniform behind the fence. We have another one. He may have been the man with the white puff of smoke. I said that at the beginning of this. If he was, what I said before stands, that if you were involved in this, they were going to take you out instantly. Did they want to get rid of him because of that? I don't know. We'll never know, but it's something to think about. Thank you, Chris. But it's something to think about. Why'd they need to get rid of Tippett? Did he know Ruby? Probably. Lots of people said he did. Did he have a mistress? Probably. Lots of people say he did. I'm not sure what went on with all that. His wife's story changed quite a bit, but for her to be covered security wise and have a buffer constantly running between her and journalists and researchers and stuff where they say, nope, she's not speaking, you know, and Gardner, and she goes and does her little talks at universities and stuff. And she did up until, you know, not long before she died. But her story changed a lot. Wrote a book, did the thing. Why Tippett? This might sound nuts, but I want you to hear me through. Was LBJ holding that plane so they could get something done? What did they need to get done? If JFK got shot from the front and they have to cover it up. We talked in another episode about a man named Lippitt who was an embalmer, very good one, used often when they needed to get a little extra work done. He got a phone call, his family said, and I've listened to his children talk about their memory on this. They're, of course, adults now, for sure. Did a little thing in the 90s where he talked about it. And he got a call, and his wife said he had to go. He was going to be gone a little bit. Don't call me, I'll call you, kind of thing. Don't worry about me. Y'all watched it with me. He leaves. He's gone quite a bit, comes back, just wore out, just been through something, can't talk about it. Pack your things, we're out of here now. Grabs the kids, they go, they stay in a hotel, probably as far as Fort Worth, not sure where. He's constantly watching TV. Well, that's a wild weekend. Everybody's watching the TV. Right up until they saw Ruby shoot Oswald. All weekend, from Friday afternoon, Sunday afternoon. It was on a weekend thing. Oswald got shot. And his wife said, as soon as he saw Ruby shoot Oswald, he stood up and said, well, we can go home now. Packed up their stuff. And he became very rich after that. Wound up getting into gambling and wound up getting shot, I don't know, 5 times. I can't remember how, but it was suicide not long after. What was he doing? Was he on a plane doing some embalming work that he was so good at? Real cosmetic stuff. He was a perfectionist. I don't know. Is it possible that LBJ was holding that plane up because he knew some things had to get into place? They had to get that limo out of there. Well, that went on a plane. Did anything else go on a plane with the Beast? All the other cars, the motorcade, all that stuff? Maybe another body, another casket, a planar casket. Did they have to do some cosmetic work on a head? It's said that he had a nickname. They laughed because he was kind of a rockabilly kind of guy. This guy was a soldier in the Battle of the Bulge, Officer Tippett. He had PTSD. He had a tic so bad he couldn't look people in the eye. It kept him from getting advanced. He was messed up. He went through a bad war. Had a lot of jobs. He may or may not have been involved in some dastardly stuff. I don't know. But the man was shot dead. But the coup de grace shot was right in the head. From the front to the back. Shot in the head. It said around the station that he looked a little like somebody. They called him Jack. So what if? What if they needed some extra parts? Would they be that cold? Would they be that cruel? I don't know. It's just a theory. It's just a thought. But they can't place Oswald there in time. They only took witnesses like Helen Markham. So we're going to finish this up one more, a little bit more on Oswald and, how all this worked through. And again, I'm looking for the ghost stories and haunted places. That the stories are always a few with this stuff. But I'll tell you what, digging through this one, I really think that LBJ was holding up that plane so they could get Tippett's body where it needed to be. Got 2 caskets that wound up. To think that woman was sitting next to that casket thinking her husband was in there and he wasn't. It might have been Officer Tippett. May not have been. But to see how far and how deep the cover-up, the amount of people that they took out to keep their secrets, their dirty little lies. And they shot 2 men that day and a lot of people after. And then you had the wars. And then they went and shot MLK. And eventually, Bobby. We at least got one more episode in this, folks. I told you it was a dark door. I don't know how you feel about it. Maybe they used Tippett. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't either. I've heard, other researchers say, it doesn't matter. What does it matter? I think it matters. I think the people matter. I think the people that came forth and gave their life to tell us the truth matter. And I think we need to keep talking about it until the truth comes out and enough people get and understand that a nation hit its knees that day. That if we allow them, I don't care if it's posthumously or otherwise, the truth needs to come out. And I'm sure this man was just running around trying to do his job. He was probably caught up too. He might have been part of it. But they shot him. And I think they used him possibly for a decoy. They lost JFK's brain. There's stories out there that LBJ used to taunt Bobby about it. Bobby looked LBJ in the face and said, "Why'd you have my brother killed?" The stuff that went on here cannot be allowed to not be spoken of because people are tired of hearing of it, because we need to learn from the history. And if enough people, all those people that made up those petitions, all of these researchers that came through and gave their, at least a better part of their lives, their free time, to research and dig down and dig for the truth. And I think it's sad when big creators and big researchers sit around and go, throw that out. That's 30 years of that man's life. There's no facts in there that you can use. You throwing it all out? I can see if somebody come on, Bugliosi's book, total horse crap. You can look at this and you can say, okay, these secret societies, these agencies have people write books to throw you off. People get paid for that. You have to be good at this. You have to discern and you have to weigh everything out. Like I said, just like the scales of justice, man, you have to weigh this out and how you feel about it and bring in your common sense. But don't let it get you vexed. Keep those threads there. The picture will show itself. But I think pulling the threads out and going, I'm not listening to that. And this guy's in it, and basically calling each other names and crackpots and this and that. I've seen people that say, we don't talk about Dorothy Kilgallen. It's an important part. Well, she had a history of drug use and she was an alcoholic and she had been to rehab. Oh, okay. That doesn't mean she wasn't killed. Have you looked at the facts? Just because you don't like the guy who wrote the book, there's still facts there. There's still good pieces to this puzzle, good threads with bright colors that point in different directions and hook in and connect other things. Don't throw it away, because you're doing the same. To me, you're doing the same thing that they wanted to do when they started making conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorist a nasty thing to be. To throw you off. So you'd let go. So you'd shut up. So they get away with it again and again and again. And here in other countries. So don't you do it. This is one more man, if you want to stick with me for 10 minutes. I will show you this, and then we will get out of here. But I think this is so good, and it's another chance to introduce another researcher. Again, I'm not speaking for any of these people. You know, some like Jim Mars, absolutely I will, because I've been around him and spoken to him, and you know, and several others too. This man I've just found this year. I don't know much about him, but this is the guy I told you that was working. He was in the military. He was doing security, doing some guard duty in a document a facility where they held military documents. And he was working the part where they had the retired military. And he would go through and pull files and read them out of boredom. And he pulled one and a file came out. He thought it was empty, opened it. It was Oswald's. And it had on there that he was just barely a marksman, that they had just passed him. So anyway, the paperwork he found was hidden in a place it should have never been. This is the guy I was telling you about. And he's going to give you a little bit of his idea. And I thought it was so funny because I just heard this the other day. And I've been feeling the way I just told you about, you know, Tippett and everything else for a long time. And I thought it was neat that he kind of sort of felt the same way here. And he says it really good. Plus, you get to meet another researcher. I'm trying to do that a lot and give everybody a fair shake here that I think is worth hearing from. And he wrote Patriotism Unhinged is the name of his novel, I do believe. They knew this segment here is They Knew Too Much. And this is him talking a little bit about what I just talked about. And it's about 6 minutes, and then we'll get out of here.
And
his name is, oh gosh, I want to get it right. It is Jim Manning. Jim Manning. Okay. I knew it was Manning. I thought it was.
Shot in the back of the head 3 times, and then shot again all around his mouth a number of times to send a signal that they thought he was going to talk. Whoever had access to him had to be somebody very close.
He's talking about
the betting money is on
Roselli.
Johnny Roselli. Johnny Roselli was also killed. He was found floating in a barrel in Biscayne Bay, Florida, before he was going to go and talk to the committee. He was well aware of the assassination attempt because he was part and parcel to getting the mafia tied up with the CIA on that particular issue. He was a rather
mongoose,
handsome fella and very charismatic, and was able to breach relationships very well with non-criminal people. I could go on because so many people knew about this. Take, for example, the body of John Kennedy. Now, the body of John Kennedy left Parkland, and you never hear anything about that because you assume that what you see in the news, where the next thing you see is the Secret Service carrying the coffin up the back steps of the plane and then having trouble getting it in the plane because it was too wide and breaking off some of the handles, I believe. I will tell you that after 55 years of researching this thing, I don't believe there was a body in that casket. The body had been switched after it left the funeral home and was found later at the hospital coming out of an ambulance, and not what everybody saw on television, which when they landed at Andrews Air Force Base, the elevator was bringing it down to the ground. It was then moved into the ambulance that was there, and then Jackie and Robert Kennedy at that moment got into that ambulance along with his personal physician. Originally, it was scheduled to go to the Army hospital, but it was switched to the naval facility at Bethesda, Maryland. It arrived there. Jackie and the doctor and Robert got out, went in and took the elevator up to, I guess, the top floor where there was a gracious waiting room. They were there for quite some time. The news reporters saw the ambulance with the coffin move around to the back of the hospital to the morgue. However, there were two ambulances, and one of the ambulances had the driver and the other person in the ambulance, both CIA agents. I think what history will prove somewhere down the road is that his body was put on either Air Force Two, but more than likely it was put on the plane that carries the Beast and carries the associated vehicles for the Secret Service, security front and back of the limousine. That large airplane, when the president leaves, it leaves, but it gets to the destination faster so that it can be unloaded and those vehicles brought around to where whenever the president gets out of the plane, he gets right into the limousine. Once the body was aboard that plane, a Dallas mortician named John Liggett had been swept up and put on the plane with all of the implements and supplies he would need to work on John Kennedy. John Kennedy had a large hole in the back of his head, and that hole disappeared. Some other body somewhere lost a cranium that was put into Kennedy's head so that whenever the body got to Bethesda, it didn't look anything like what the doctors had seen, all 16 of them who testified that he had a huge hole in the back of his head. He did a pretty good job, and it took him 3 hours, I guess, flight time, 4 hours to do it. Subsequent to that, he was flown back to Dallas very quickly and had his wife and children ready to go. And they moved out of Dallas to a motel. Might have been Fort Worth, or it might have been, even as far away as El Paso. And they were watching that he was watching constantly the TV information about the assassination. When he saw Oswald had been murdered by Jack Ruby, he said to the family, "Okay, that's it. Get everything in the car. We're going home." And after that, they became quite wealthy.
What'd I tell you?
They moved out of the house that they were living in to a much larger house. He became a gambler with a lot of heavy gambling going on at the house. He was shot trying to escape from jail on a trumped-up charge.
There he is, Liggett.
So that was probably one of the 165
That's
killings.
Jim Bomber.
To get people who knew too much about the assassination or vital information about it from being able to tell anybody about it.
Well, there you go, guys. There's another one that, 55 years he's studying, he's researching, he's just trying to get the word out. I thought it was so funny when I came across it. I'm like, yeah, man, I agree. Again, can we prove that LBJ was holding that plane so they could get these bodies sorted? Should we, exhume? There's been a lot of exhumation on these bodies. There's Tippit. I don't know if Tippit was ever dug up. I think that one got fought, but what they believe that it was actually like a head switch, and then they switched it back. I mean, just the stuff that goes on. Same thing with has been said about Oswald. Oswald, I think they even put him under concrete, but they went behind and came up under it. And when they exhumed it, because Oswald's mom was really pushing for it because she didn't believe it was his body in the coffin either. They found out that it had been switched out. It's crazy. The stuff that's gone on with these graves, the stuff that's gone on with the theories, the planet evidence, Did he get the gun in the theater? Did he get it in the, he went to the landladies again. How is she going to see it? She's standing in the living room. He goes in the room, closes the door. All she knows is he comes out with the jacket. It really comes down to the wallets and the jackets and the gun. Nothing's matching up. They just lied. They just lied, like they did about the handprint on the gun on the Mannlicher Carcano. That got put on from Oswald's dead hand, and you had Jim Mars telling you that he knew and spoke to the coroner and said he had a hell of a time getting that ink off. Now, some of these people floated around for a while. Some were insignificant enough to not take them out. But when people like Aquila said that she was warned not to say anything, and Mark Lane got her to speak, and then she disappeared forever. The landlady that was adjusting her TV, she left town. She was at a hotel, never seen again. People looked for her for a very long time, for decades. So it's a serious thing, folks. It's not just, one person got, they shot the president in the head. Oh, well, he knew what he was doing. He knew he was in danger. There's people here talking about, I've got so many people talking about how they knew this was going to happen, how they would do it if it was them. Speaking about pulling off something like this, like it was no more than, shooting a bird in a tree. And it's not surprising. Nothing really surprises me anymore, but it's devastating to know that so many large groups of people that think that they can do this and pull this off and do it so haphazardly and off the cuff and just throwing things at the wall to see what'll stick and using what you need, picking and choosing what you need to pull this off in front of a whole, country, the world, for Pete's sake. And people bought it. And the ones that stood up and cried the loudest got shut up. And others got together in groups and made petitions and studied and researched and wrote books and did radio shows and interviews and took their chances. And sat out in front of Dealey Plaza and tried to tell the truth. Like Robert Groden. All those decades. Still going, he is. He's the one that is basically the expert on all the films, the Zapruder films. That's how I know so much about the Zapruder films, by listening to Robert Groden. You've listened to him too. He was in The Man Who Killed Kennedy. That young man, he was 18, 19 years old with a dark beard. Now he's got a gray beard. He's an older man, and he's still going. And I think all these people deserve to be listened to, these researchers, and you decide for yourself. But the main thing is that you're learning how to discern for yourself. You're learning how to really get into the monster of all monsters. And if this one doesn't make you crazy, when you go to look at what's going on today, the things going on around us, be a piece of cake. Because you'll go, oh, I recognize that. They've done this shit before. I know exactly what that is. I've seen the playbook. And don't let them get away with it anymore. Speak your truth. But do your own research. Don't listen to me. I just think it's neat when I find other people that was like, yeah, that's exactly how I think. I'm on the right track. And, you get excited. It's like a little mile marker, But I think there was definitely something more to tip it. They got lucky. Do I think he was a plant there? No, but I can see the men in suits drinking fine whiskey and playing pool or whatever they're doing in their fine paneling, libraries, and deciding the fate of an entire population of humanity, and who gets to live and who gets to die, playing God in there. I can see them laughing, going, yeah, there's a guy down there and he needs money. He does all the little side dirty jobs. He's just some goofball got shell shocked from the wars in the Battle of Bulge, and now he'll do anything, man. If he's not cheating on his wife, or ha ha ha, laughing and smacking the table, thinking it's funny, and looks a little like Kennedy too. They call him Jack. Can you imagine? And they're laughing about it. That's disgusting to me. I despise people like that. You know, I come from a time where people would think nothing of being in the military and throwing themselves on a grenade to save their squad, you know, to get shot holding up the flag from hitting the ground because it was that important. To risk their life to save a child that's about to get hit by a bus or some other kind of thing. That the child's life came first and life was precious and you didn't do things like this. The man that they shot in the head said those very words in the Oval Office. We don't do things like that. When the Joint Chief of Staff brought them Project Northwoods, let's take a whole plane full, commercial plane full of civilians. Won't be many. He's 45, 50. We'll shoot it out of the sky. Say Cuba did it. We'll start a war with Cuba. It'll be great. Kennedy went, what? Y'all signed off on that? Yeah, we did. Oh, yeah. It's a tough decision, but we have to do it for the good national security. Kennedy said, we don't do that. You out of your mind? And they got mad at him because he was talking behind the lines, using backdoor ways to talk to Khrushchev to try to get peace. Khrushchev said, we'll slowly pull out our weapons and you'll pull out yours and everybody up. No, we won't blow, nobody will blow anybody up. And we won't start any wars with Cuba. Khrushchev believed him because the liaison believed him. Old school. They tried to talk it out instead of blowing each other up. They shot him for it because he wanted to pull out of Vietnam. Because he said the oil barons had to be a little bit more gentler with the public. Cut them by 30%. Oh, we can't have that. It's money lost. And people like LBJ leaned in and said, well, I hate to do it, but there's a lot of money to be made. The awful things that bad men do. Keep your eye on them, folks. Thank you for sticking with me. I love y'all. We're going to get on out of here. I'm going to find something to get us out because StreamYard took all my stuff away again. Paying high dollar, boy. I'll tell you what, StreamYard, you need to get it together. You need to get it together. Wasn't so bad. At least they didn't cut us off. I don't know. Are we okay over there on YouTube? I can't tell. Are we still rolling? I'm 5.5 on YouTube. I can't believe they're letting us talk about this. That's insane. I'm sure they're punishing me in other ways, though. Very little doubt about that. All right, let's see. Come on, something good. Ooh, let's dance some blues away. How about that? I love y'all. Kick your shoes off. Let's dance some blues away. We got our eyes open. We're watching them. I love y'all. Thanks for being here. Tomorrow night with Steve. All right, I don't know what we're going to talk about. We'll find something. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.